Thank you so much for inviting us. We are so excited to be here representing our school and all of the hard work that we've done together in light of Common Core and helping our students achieve. So thank you very much. The way we were introduced to Common Core, we were lucky enough to be at a school where we won a grant called the We Can Do It grant. That was 2 years ago. And the focus of the grant was really all around the Common Core state standards and how it would look inside of our school. So we were able to do something at an accelerated pace that is really the expectation across the district. So, the focus of our grant was really shifting away from focusing on teacher practice. So how much time you're spending on your reading block and how much time you're spending in math and how much time you spend with each group that you're working with. And shifting away from that kind of a focus really to what do the students need to learn? Like what is the expectation at the end of third grade? Where do they need to be? What skills do they need to have? And how are we going to get there? So I think it's very aligned to what Tamara just explained with the gradual release of responsibility, using the framework, and using the inquiry cycle, except that we were able to do it all at the same time in a really focused and accelerated way. So how we did it was we had time over the summer to get together with our teams. We have dual language teachers on our team. We have English language immersion teachers on our team, special ed teachers and coaches. So we were lucky enough to be able to be flexible when to meet. We started with the anchor standards, which is at the top there, and then we looked at the grade before and the grade after. We wanted to have a sense of where they were coming from, what skills they were bringing with them, and then what the expectation was for us to bridge to the next grade. The example we brought here is an example on the narrative writing. So what we did is we looked at the standards and then we broke down the standards even more. So we called it the unpacking of the standards. So if we need to get them to have this skill set, what are the components that we need to make sure that we address? And what are the guiding questions that we can use to do that? And as we went through, some of them will have more components because they're more complex, and some of them will have less components than others. So these were the 4 that we focused on. We took into account then also what language skills and speaking and listening standards we would need. So in the end, we created different rubrics for the different standards as to what they needed to be. So at the end of third grade in the narrative writing, these were the skills and the content they needed to be able to be successful with. And what was really helpful about creating these kinds of rubrics is not only did it make our teaching really explicit and really clear, but we share it with the students right away and they know exactly what the expectations are. This is the target, right? And this is where you're expected to be by the end of this unit or by the end of the year. And we're going to help you get there. So not only did it focus our teaching, but it focused them on what their learning was and why it was important. And it facilitated them collaborating with each other around them. So if they're talking about a narrative piece of writing, they can say, oh, I noticed that you used a lot of dialogue here. Maybe if you used a little more descriptive words, that would really help your story along. So they're able to use these rubrics as a guide to help them improve their own writing and to have constructive dialogue with their other classmates as well.
Do we want to show them? Okay. So Rhiannon just talked about how the students really use this rubric to help them. I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. All right. So Rhiannon just talked about how the students can use this rubric in a really collaborative way, but I'll also go through how we use it and collaborate with the teachers, with parents, and more with the students. So we spent a lot of time in the summer 2 years ago meeting together with DLI teachers, ALI teachers, special education teachers, coaches, and like Rhiannon said, we started with the literacy standards in writing, and we put together this rubric for narrative writing of what we want them to be at the end, what we know what they need for the end of 3rd grade. And so we showed this to them right away. We showed it to families right away in the beginning of the year. We were all very transparent about this is what we're focusing on. This is how you can help support your child at home when they come home and they write a story. These are the things we want to see in order to receive a 3 to be proficient. So what we did was something called a cold write. So at the beginning of the year, every student at Sandburg from K through 5 wrote a cold write narrative about a time that they spent with a special person. And this was, I think, in the 2nd week of school. So just to see what they know, what are they coming to us with, what skills with narrative writing. And then we met each team, so the 3rd grade team met together, and we analyzed the data. We used a strategy called here's what, now what, so what. So we looked, okay, what was the data we found? What skills did they really come with? And then we talked about, okay, what does that mean for our teaching for the next semester, for the next quarter, however long we have? Where are we going to focus on? Where are we going to start? And we came with it. The nice thing about the rubric is that we can see exactly what their strengths are and then what they need. So we have this idea together, okay, they need to focus on this, but then the Common Core Standards provides us with that freedom of, okay, so I know I want to get there, that the students need to work on this skill. However, I'm the one that knows my class the best. And so Rhiannon's class might need it a little bit different than my class. So even though we have the same goal in mind, we have a different way of getting there. And then so we did the teaching for about a quarter or more, and then we did the post-assessment. And the students wrote another story about a time they spent with a special person. So we could analyze the data of, they came with these skills, this is how they did in September. After about 2 months of teaching, now they're producing narratives that look like this. So we were able to analyze and see where their growth was, what teaching ideas, what strategies that we use that really helped. And so it really kind of formed our instruction for the rest of the year. Where do we still want to go with them with narrative writing, and even for the next year? So now that we're doing this for our 2nd time around, we're going back and looking at our notes and saying, oh yeah, that strategy was really helpful for the students, or maybe that won't work this year. And so we're really reflective, and we're able to come together and get ideas from everyone. So I think we wanted to show a quick example of what Rhiannon was talking about with the students collaborating together and knowing what the expectation is, how they help each other with their writing. So this is, we also use a lot of technology at Sandburg. So what we're about to show you is just a really short EduCreations video. The students have their iPads and they are able to, it's like an interactive whiteboard, so they can record their voices and write things on there. So
this was around an informational text, but it's the same idea where you see how the kids are interacting with these standards and using the rubrics to guide their learning.
Hello everybody, this is Ashley and Destiny. Today we will conference on Ashley's informative writing. Hello Ashley. Hello. So what do you want to focus on today? Introduction, features of nonfiction, and precise narrative. Okay, let's start with introduction. So, what do you think your general observation is, or focus? It's like, I want to tell my story about data, that how it's important to almost everybody in the world, and I want them to learn about data for them when they're maybe big. When they have a job, they know how to use it. Okay. So do you have questions, facts, or anecdotes? Yes, it only has answers, and right now my focus is to do facts and anecdotes. Sorry.
So that's just a brief example where you see the students, they're using academic language, they're learning from each other, but it's really clear to them what they need to be doing. And the nice thing is, with this in particular, as a teacher, we can't always conference with every single student every day. We'd love to, but this way they're still accountable and we can actually hear what they were talking about. That just kind of brings to life what they were doing. I think one of the last things we'll kind of say about these were sort of the specifics of how we started to study the standards, how we unpacked them and how we used them. But I think after talking about this, we are saying we kind of appreciate the shift into the standards movement as opposed to just focusing on one curriculum. And why is because it really preserves that space for the craft and the art of teaching. Rather than saying how to get there, it's really defining where there is. And as a teacher, what that means is it's the challenge of, well, how do I get there? But it's also then that flexibility. The flexibility where we still get to, teach in a way where, we have our own creativity and passions and things we love, and that space is still there for us to help get our students to where they need to be. And so now our goal is to be aware of what the curricular resources are. Lucy Calkins, Mondo, Investigations. There's lots of key lessons and curriculums that help us, but we can also tap into the human resources and learn from each other, as well as the technology resources to support the students. And so what you would see if you came to Sandburg, we might be teaching the same standard. It could look a little different in Rhiannon's classroom as opposed to Erin's. So her classroom in a dual language room, they're all learning in a different language for part of the day. So some of the standards are better met through her kids doing plays. That's a great way that they can access them. And it might look different in Erin's, but she's going to do what works for her students in the culture of her class and for her. It promotes collaboration because if something's really working in one room, we can say what's working well and we can learn from one another. As much as it allows the space for us to kind of teach the way we love to teach, it also allows kids to get to learn about things that matter to them and things that they care about. If we had to teach, this lesson from this page on this day, it might never get to what they really are interested in. So our job is to figure out how to make Common Core engaging and relevant and digestible to kids. And so, for example, last year, some of our students, the standard was identify like the main idea and key details. They could do that in a worksheet, a book report, but we had students who loved this book and they said, can we create a song about it? So the main idea was in the chorus and the details were in the verse, and they created it in an app called GarageBand and they presented it. So they were so excited. They wanted to stay after school to work on it. They still did projects that mattered to them, and we could justify because they had evidence showing us how they had met the standard. And so we love teaching. We love teaching in Madison. There's so many great things. And as teachers, though, it can feel like there's just a lot of new things out there. And I think what these standards can do is kind of provide a degree of a long-term focus. And they can actually provide some stability in what we need to focus. So as you saw, our team spent a lot of time deeply studying the standards. Now we have to come up with the best ways to teach them, and then that whole reflection piece comes in. What worked? What do we need to do better? And so, and how can we improve over time? And our principal, Brett Wilfred, who we love, was just saying that I think it's what these do is kind of provide that hope of stability in what can oftentimes be this like ever-changing educational landscape.